This is TNC Movie Nights, and Brandon Gellman back in the cave.
I got you.
I'm back at Brandon's house. You can see me on this screen, and hello, I'm on Brandon's screen too. Because we're in the same room. Wonder what's gonna happen. We're gonna record a podcast. I'm actually gonna record two. But anyway, we're talking about comedy by genre again. Everyone's favorite topic. I have no idea. I really don't know what the feedback of this has been lately. But let's get to it. Brandon, 70s comedies. Pause. How you doing?
I'm doing well. This is the my first official day of not having a job, which feels crazy because that was done on purpose, not on accident, or not because company let me go. But taking a leap, gonna give content creating a full shot for about 12 to 18 months. See where it goes. Gonna be streaming a lot more shows, a lot more episodes like this coming out. So it's gonna be so weird. I've been so productive today. I've been up for 8 hours already. Usually I'm up for about 4.5 at this point. So feels really weird. Got up at 8 o'clock, went to the gym, did stuff, worked out, and yeah, and now we're here. So doing well. How are you? How's I got to see the van for the first time, which is cool.
We are officially on the van trip, although it is not officially done. But that's why we're here to finish up some final work. But we're here. We're on the road. We are officially nomadic peoples now. So that's fun. We still have a lot of work. So,
It's crazy.
yeah, it's weird. It's weird. But I like it. You know, completely disconnected. Nothing holding us back. All that jazz. But I'm also very tired.
I bet I've seen all the work that has been going through that van through good old Snapchat. So good on ya. You've made it far.
Still got a lot to go. But it'll be fun when it's done. I'll take pictures and we'll post it up, all that stuff, so people know what it looks like. And all
Heck
that.
yeah.
So, to the point of the episode today, 70s comedies. What is the first thing that comes to mind when you think 70s comedies?
There was nothing good, but then I look and I was wrong. There are some good comedy movies. We actually just watched one the other day that was the 50th anniversary, which is just crazy. But Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, as you did here in our review, we loved it. It was great. It's a fun time. It's very witty and enjoyable. And that, and then Bad News Bears. Those are the two comedy movies from the 70s that I've always really enjoyed. And that is kind of it. I mean, there are some other decent ones out there, some that are cult classics that I just deeply hate, that I just can't enjoy. And then a lot of raunchy comedy. So we'll of course get into a little bit, but that's kind of my brief thought of when I think about 70s movies for comedy.
Yeah, honestly, that's pretty good. I don't know if I would disagree with any of that. It'll be interesting to see how you feel about our review this week, which is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I won't ask you about it now, but I noticed it didn't come up in your good funny movies for the 70s. So
Oh no, it did just come up in one of the things I was saying.
All right, then. We'll save that for after this. But yeah, man, when I think of 70s comedies, most of it is those really bad, like, classics that are tabs. Like, it's that. I just don't find that stuff funny because it's just not. And some of them are. You know, I don't want to discount the whole 70s. And there are things that, like, I think between the two of us, I don't know, I'm probably the one that notices more like, well, you know, this wouldn't hold up today, and so it's probably not very good. I'm that guy.
Yeah.
Whatever. But also I can't appreciate movies that were funny at the time that you totally just couldn't make again. But the 70s doesn't have a lot of them. It just has bad movies that are just trying to be as, like, terrible and raunchy as possible without actually being funny, and then they think that that's funny. It's just not.
Okay. I think we are going to very heavily agree about one of the movies for the most part. And I do think there's another movie in here we are going to disagree with on that one, because I do enjoy the other one. So, before we get into the raunchy stuff, let's try to save that for the end. What is what is kind of something you take from the 70s for the good comedy movies? Is there kind of a theme on how they're done? A lot of 80, we'll jump more into the 80s, of course, but, there's a lot of like high school ish people and they're, making it big, stuff like that. In the 60s, we saw a lot of like physical humor really getting traction. What is kind of the theme that you see in the 70s a little bit?
I see the '70s as a lot more of like the, I don't know, like the average Joe, everyman sort of comedy, that sort of thing, where it's like
Okay,
instead
yeah.
of being these fantastical sketches or these very, very fictional premises that stay very fictional. This is more like, here's a fictional story, but look, it's an average person, or it's an average, like you said, like high schoolers, or it's an average this, and that's not all of them, but that's where I think that sort of like that average Joe burp fart comedy sort of stuff starts to take a lot of the lead. This is a lot of that leading away here.
Yeah, there is a decent amount of that, I will agree, and kind of that absurdity humor, that really kind of off the wall, that jump back 5, 10 years ago, depending when the movie was made, no one would have even thought about stuff like that. I mean, some of it can work really well. There is some comedy out there that, again, it's not for everyone. Like, I'm a huge fan of Anthony Jeselnik, but I know he's not for everyone. He's very, how can I say something that no one's going to expect, but for it to be the most offensive possible thing that I can say? And in some ways, it can be done in a funny way. Of course, everyone won't find it funny. But there was a lot in the 70s where it was like, let's be vulgar and like,
As crude as possible.
yeah, crude is a perfect word for it. Thank you. So there is a lot of that in the mid to late 70s. It really kind of hits around that, I think, like 75 area.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, but I think there's a critical difference between like a shot comic like Anthony Jeselnik and the the humor here, and that is like a critical amount of self awareness. Like Jeselnik,
That's understandable.
he's like
Yeah.
he knows what he's saying is crude and asinine and dark for the sake of
Yeah.
being
And
dark.
completely not a real thing people would
Yeah,
think.
no,
kind of
he's
thing.
not
Yeah.
making a statement. He's making
Yeah.
a statement in that he's going to try to say the rudest, crudest thing ever.
Yeah.
And, that's the point. And I think that is very critically lacking in the 70s. I think they're being the rudest, crudest because they go, because that's what's funny. You get it? Haha. And you're just like, I mean, not really, but I guess you do you. And they're like, no, but it is. See? And they slap you upside the head with it, like, you don't get it. And I'm like, oh, pretty sure I get it, but I don't think you think what funny is. But,
Now, I do have a counter to that because just curious on your stand of it. So is it more kind of the message that the person's portraying here? Let's pretend right now. I don't know if you like Anthony Jeselnik or not, but let's
some of
just
the stuff's pretty fun.
let's just say you really like Anthony Jeselnik, and it's because he's satire. It's we know it's a joke. Let's pretend when he says things, he's like, no, it's not a joke. This is truly what I think. Does that take away from like the joke at all? Because personally, I'll be very honest, that doesn't to me. Because if the joke's funny, the joke's funny. Like that is. I'm just want to play a little devil's advocate right now, and that's why I'm asking this question. So
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. And for me, with that sort of stuff, it does. Because that's part of the bit for me. That's part of what makes it funny. Is that he's like, I don't know. He's like saying the joke, and then part of it is that he's saying that just to say the thing, It's not a statement piece. He's not trying to he's not trying to change anyone's mind with the words. It's more like I'm saying this because it's funny to get a rise out of you, but not in a way that also lacks self-awareness. Because there's some people who just say the meanest, cruelest things because they think it's funny to offend people, and then there's comics who say the rudest, crudest things to offend people who get offended on behalf of other people.
yeah,
And I think that's a very subtle difference, but I think it's a very noticeable
Important,
one
yeah.
too. Like it's the difference between punching down and like punching across. So
Yeah.
I think any comic who punches down is just lazy, and most of the time it's not very funny. But if you're like sort of on an equal level making fun of like someone who's if it's the difference between making fun of like a marginalized group and then getting pissed off when they get upset with you, and then making fun of people who get offended on behalf of a marginalized group who's not asking for help from those people. I don't know. It's a like I said, it's a very fine line, but I think that is the difference for me. And when you have that self-awareness and you're not punching down, then it's funny, and that's why it's funny. But when you're just doing lazy comedy and you're punching down, it becomes less funny and lazy.
Okay. And I was, yeah, again, it's why I asked. I was very curious on how different things view, because, again, we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff today. So,
For sure.
yeah, and at this point, we can really kind of just get into it, because I know there's one movie you really dislike for the way they made the movie, because of, like, the message on the tone and all that kind of stuff. I don't care for the movie that much just because the jokes don't really land for me. I mean, I'll be honest, I've probably seen it 3-4 times in my life, just because it is a lot of people I know, family-wise kind of stuff. They're like, yeah, it's a fun movie, it's a good time. And I've tried to watch more times, and there's a couple parts of the movie that I'm like, okay, I chuckled a little bit. But I do agree with you, I don't think it's a very good movie. Go ahead and bring that one up, because I want to bring up the one that I actually do enjoy after.
Everyone who's like 50 and above just has the hardest scoffs when I say this, and I'm not alone. Animal House sucks. It's just not a good movie. And you know what? Some of the actors in it are funny. Some of the lines, like you said, you chuckle a few times, but again, this is like that stereotypical, like, dad raunchy comedy sort of thing. And we'll get into this a lot more in the 80s, because it just kind of started in the late 70s and then went full force in the 80s. But it's not funny. It's just not. And it's not funny because, oh, that's offensive. It's like, yes, it is, but it's also not funny. Things are, I don't know. It's just a really stupid movie with not really great anything in it. And then everyone who's, like I said, like above the age of 50 goes, it's a comedy classic. Oh my god, it's one of the funniest movies ever made. It's like, I don't think you know what's funny. And I don't want to be that, like, gatekeeper type, well, that's not really what comedy is. But, I don't know, man. For me, that's just not funny. And it kind of bugs me that it's a classic. I mean, there are bad movies that are classics, but this one is just... No one's going to remember it. That's the thing. No one's going to remember it as fondly as a very small group, like a very tight-knit generational gap, where there's that one group that thinks it's like the funniest movie ever made, and then everyone else is like, I mean, I chuckled a couple of times, but it's not going to be one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's not the funniest movie I've ever seen. It's a very flawed movie with some meh comedy moments, and I think that's what it deserves. That's what it'll go down as, and it's so problematic. But before I get lost on a tangent like that, I'll kick it to you, because that's gonna be one of those ball rolling type things where I gotta stop.
I almost think we shouldn't do that. I think we need to let you do that for, like, an actual episode, because we've talked about it, and I know you can go on for a good, like, 20 minutes about that movie. I will just mention, to me, that movie, the best way I can explain it is, because I think the actual line is, like, when he has all the potatoes in his mouth and he smashes his face, like, I'm a zit, get it? And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I don't. I'm pretty sure he even said, yeah, I'm pretty sure he even says, like, get it? Like, and that's how I feel about a lot of that humor in that movie. It's like, you're kind of just saying something that just...
Get it? I'm funny!
And yeah, I could never get into Animal House. The movie, I don't know how you really feel about this one, but the one I was going to bring up that I know is, like, really raunchy and just not right.
I'm looking at it right now. I know exactly what you're going to say.
Blazing Saddles, baby.
The one.
It's so bad, but so
That one, It's, oh,
To me, it's the offensive, but it's like, I don't know why when I watch that one, I feel like it's more self-aware. In my, like, I don't know why, but that's just how I've always kind of seen that one.
oh,
And
it's definitely more self-aware than Animal House.
yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah,
But it's almost raunchier. It's like, that's a tough one because I also really loved Young Frankenstein. So, like that sort of Mel Brooks humor,
yeah,
I like.
yeah.
Spaceballs was not one of my favorites, but I get it. Like it's,
Mhm.
I can see how that's like a classic. I laugh during that. I'm not gonna say it's not funny, just because I say it's not one of my favorites. But like I get it. And with Blazing Saddles, I get it. I think it kind of crosses the line a little bit here and there,
In one big
even
scene.
for the '70s.
In one big scene, yeah.
A
I'd
little
agree.
bit,
A little bit.
But that is one where I can understand that.
How someone can find it funny.
Yeah.
For Animal House, you're kind of like, I just don't get why people think it's funny.
Yeah, like Blazing Saddles
That's- yeah,
is one
I
of
can
those
understand that.
perfect examples of Jesus Christ. You could never come close to making that today.
Mm-hmm. And I really think with Blazing Saddles, I think if you remove the one issue scene of the movie, I don't remember the whole movie properly. So
I haven't seen it in a hot minute.
yeah, it's probably been about 3-4 years for me, I'd say.
Burns into your brain.
Yeah, there's that one scene, you remove that little section, and you'd be like, yeah, the movie is kind of normal for a comedy. I mean, for a raunchy comedy. Sorry.
Yeah.
So,
So that one's tough.
Yeah.
I sit kind of like right on the line there where it's like, if someone told me like that is one of their favorite movies and it's one of their favorite comedies and they grew up in that era and they watched it, I get how that's funny. But also if someone goes, that is the most horrific thing that has been put to cinema and I can't believe that it got as popular as it was, I could also see their side of it.
That's
and
fine.
I just kind of throw my hands up and go, this
ain't my argument.
This ain't my argument. This ain't my fight to fight. I'm not trying to, I abstain from this vote sort of thing. So
Yeah.
But Animal House is just
Fair. Before we kind of keep talking about the movies real quick, if you have the chance, anyone who is watching or listening right now, do me a favor, just go look up 70s comedy movies and go look at the posters for all of them. They are almost all caricature art of like every single person in the entire movie slapped right in the front right there.
It's very Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, because I'm going through and I'm like, American Graffiti. All right, hey, that one looks really cool, very caricature and all that kind of stuff. And then I go down to Bad News Bears. I'm like,
yeah,
interesting, very very caricature. And then I go down to Animal House. I'm like, interesting, another caricature kind of thing.
Holy Grail.
Yeah,
Meatballs,
Holy Grail. And then
Blazing
it was
Saddles.
funny. It was like 3 or 4 movies in a row. Bloom in Love, Charlie and the Angel, Cops and Robbers. Like every single one of them are just caricatures with the main cast on the front. Go take a look. You'll get a little laugh from it because you can just kind of randomly roll a number and be like, that one, and you'll find one.
That is pretty funny. That is pretty funny. I'm scrolling through some of them now, and yeah, it's the Life of Brian's the same.
Yep.
Rocky Horror Picture Show is not, but like, it's like one of the only ones. How do you feel about that movie, by the way? Because I feel like that is a very divisive movie.
Never seen it.
Oh, well, there we go.
I've been told multiple times because I've never seen it. I need to actually go to the event. Like isn't there like a Rocky Horror Picture Show like theater thing that happens on Halloween? Everyone tells me that has to be the first time you ever experience it. And then I just never end up going. And I literally had a costume set up to go for it. My girlfriend and I, she was going to go as Hugh Hefner, and I was going to go in a Playboy bunny outfit. And that's what we were going to go do and go see that for my first time, and COVID. So,
that sucks.
Yeah. Never seen it. I think I would enjoy it, honestly. I think it would be fun.
Yeah. It's fun. It's a fun movie. It's a really weird movie. I think... And I don't want to sound mean at this because I don't mean anything like negative about it, but I think it gets overappreciated by theater kids, and we
That's
have a bunch of friends who kind of fall into that theater kid
Yeah.
or theater kid adjacent sort of group,
Mhm.
and so I feel like it gets it's I don't want to sound like I'm talking the movie because it is a good movie and I did like the movie. I'll just leave it there.
No, fair. I can understand it there. And I'm trying to think. I mean, we mentioned a lot of the movies we enjoy from the 70s, some of the ones we don't like. Now, there are some comedies that also did get remakes. There's not a whole lot in the 70s, but there are some, like Pink Panther, I know got a little bit of love. And, oh man, I just had two more in
Bad
mind.
News Bears we've been talking about
Thank
for a
you.
while.
Bad News Bears, and then Longest Yard. And there might have been at least Freaky Friday and Fun with Dick and Jane.
Yeah.
So there were some movies that were good enough for people in the 2000s to be like, you know what, let's do it again, but a little bit better, maybe bigger actors or better set pieces, scenes, kind of stuff like that. So
Or Adam Sandler.
yeah, that always works too. Wow, yeah. Oh no, yeah. Longest Yard was Adam Sandler, and I was like, Fun with Dick and Jane. That was Jim Carrey. Yeah.
That was a weird movie too. Not bad though. It was like post Golden Age Jim Carrey, but pre like mental spiral Jim Carrey. This was that weird sort of gray area where you're like, are you still funny or are you fully crazy?
Yeah.
That was interesting.
I think that might do it. Do you have anything else you want to add to any of the 70s movies? Any other more like little topics to bring up today?
Oh yeah, I got one. So
Okay.
this started what I can kind of describe as like the frat bro comedy, where it's just like it is one congressional hearing about boofing away from being put on the Supreme Court type of frat bro hearings, and it's like the movies are just like, yeah, rape is funny, like we're just gonna rape people and haha, you get it because it's a joke, and you're like, I mean, there wasn't a joke, you just raped somebody and then you wanted me to laugh at it, and that's not funny. And then also like it was somehow just as racist as like the 50s and 60s, like blackface still happened more than a couple of times in these classics, and it's not worse, I guess, but it's not better because like by then we had all already agreed that it still wasn't a very cool thing to do, and it was like the self-awareness to know that it's not cool. I don't know if it makes it worse, but it's definitely not better than just being racist. Like, you know it's racist now because enough people for enough time have been like, that's like really racist, and they went, yes, I do, but I don't care. This also felt like the time, and I kept saying like our dad's sort of humor. This feels like their generation finally got the reins for what is and is not considered funny anymore, and it was that whole like rebellious sort of era, I guess, where we're not going to be the stuffy shirt and tie generation, I guess. And I think what ended up happening is you went from that shift that we were kind of talking about, from not that there's either like shirt and tie about like the Three Stooges or anything, but that was sort of like, sit down, old man, it's my turn to make comedy, and you know what? We're raunchy, we're rough, we're crude, and it's funny. And then they just made a bunch of movies, and it was that passing of the torch, and now that same group is mad at us because we don't think that stuff's funny, when they did the same thing with the previous generation. And you see it with like music and movies, obviously, but pretty much any time there's that passing of the torch where now your generation isn't the one that's producing most of the stuff that hits the mainstream anymore. There's a lot of like butting of heads and a lot of backlash and a lot of that. And so when we say stuff like Animal House isn't funny, you just have some dude in his early 60s going, you just don't get it then. You're all too sensitive. You guys don't even know it's funny anymore. Everyone's got to be politically correct nowadays. And you're like, dude, just go watch your movie. It's not funny. Go watch a movie that you think is funny today, and then go watch one of your movies, and you're not laughing because it's funny. You're laughing because you had to tell yourself it's funny because your dad didn't like that you watched it. And so it just feels like, I don't know. Like I said, it just feels like that passing of the torch from the old school humor to the more rebellious, like dick jokes, fart jokes, let's be raunchy and crude and all of that, but no one stopped to really think, is it funny though? Is this funny, or are we just being assholes? Because some people did, and that's how we ended up with some of the classics that are from the 70s. And I'm not just talking about like the G and PGs, like the Willy Wonkas. There are some raunchy movies out there that are really funny, and that's because they stopped to think like, all right, you know, we're not old school humor anymore. But we should still focus on the humor part of this instead of just being a bunch of dicks.
No, I can tell you exactly what changed about it from raunchy comedy from the 70s to like today. The difference is they took out. I still think. I mean, sexist stuff, sexualization, humor is still a thing. It's always going to be a thing because either if it's men making fun of women or women making fun of men or whoever's making fun of whoever. That's going to be around, and it'll be funny if it's done right. I mean, as long as it's not, like, way over the top, I think most people can be like, yeah, that was funny. But the kind of rapey-ish humor in the 70s, that has been changed from rapey humor to weed humor, and that's the only difference from the generation.
But you know what? Smoking weed is only a crime because the government decided, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but...
Yeah.
But that's only a crime because someone decided that I want to make more money not doing that. Whereas rape is just always bad. Like, don't ever. There's never a circumstance where you can justify rape. But like all the people who are smoking weed and shit, you're like, you're not hurting anyone. I don't care. And that I think is the big difference. Where
Oh, exactly, and that's why I'm saying.
Crude.
Oh yeah.
Versus like.
And that's why it's worked, and that's why a lot. I mean, who are the funny people right now that are in the raunchy comedies? A lot of it's smoking weed stuff. I mean, jump 5-10 years ago, Seth Rogen was in everything, and
oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that a lot.
Oh yeah,
it's 2000s. About
so
this. That is for sure. And I think it goes back to what I was saying about the comics. It's all the punching down. It's so lazy, and it's not funny most of the time because it's like it's just shitty lazy humor. It's not funny. It's not funny to like punch down. It's just not. If you pull someone up and then you punch them, that's funny. You know, punch across, punch up, don't punch down.
Yeah, so I'm definitely excited to talk about. You know, we're pretty much wrapping up the 70s right now for us, and I'm personally really excited to talk about the 80s. Because, as I did mention before, that is kind of I think, kind of the big explosion, thanks to John Cusack. Is Cusack or Cusack? It's Cusack, right? Hugh with the H.
John Cusack?
Yeah. Is it Q or C or Cusack? Yeah, Q. It's with a Q. So that's kind of like the big break for me when it kind of comes to the 80s. You have a lot of those high school, college kid movies like Better Off Dead, 16 Candles.
Ferris Bueller.
Exactly, Ferris Bueller. There's so many to really kind of jump into. So I'm super excited. There is some stuff in the 80s that does kind of suck. I've tried to watch it plenty of times. Revenge of the Nerds, I know you're going to really get into for the 80s.
Animal House was just an advertisement, man.
Yeah.
Until you get to the outros of Revenge of the Nerds.
So I'm definitely excited to get into the 80s, but that's going to do it for us today for the 70s. Alex, outside of providing my own address, where can the people find us?
Well, Brandon, the people, since we can't have them come here, the people can find us at thenerdchambers.com. That's just how it is. I was going to spell it out, but the Nerd Chambers. That's it. That's where everything goes. If you want to look us up individually on other platforms for some reason, we're together as TNC Movie Nights.
across all socials, even the YouTube, the Spotify's, all the audio podcasty places. That's where we are. He's wait, where are you? He's TNC Penguin. I put TNC Fury on stuff, but that's just my last name. I don't have a cute little animal guy. Out. But the Nerd Chambers, find us there. You can support us by wearing our merch if you want. If you don't, you still should, because they're pretty rad shirts. And they're super soft. I got the hoodie tee, and I freaking love this thing. Other than that, though, find us just kind of like on the street sometimes. I have a big fan. It's hard to miss Jurassic Park sticker on the back. See it, say something. Also comment and subscribe and all the other stuffs. Brandon?
We'll see you for Monty
Bye.
Python.